Hi friends, good evening. Welcome to Shankaran IA Study Circle. This is Dr. Harinath Reddy, Director of the Institute. Today in this particular video, we will try to discuss one more important topic related to Indian Parliament, that is parliamentary privileges in India. So privileges of the Parliament or even the state legislature. So this topic, it's very important for mains exam, UPSC Group 1 mains, TSPSC Group 1 mains, ABPSC Group 1 mains. In addition, also useful for Group 2 exam as well. So let's get started with the idea of parliamentary privileges in India. So our discussion will be in the following manner. The parliamentary privileges, what is this idea of parliamentary privileges? In which country this idea of parliamentary privileges took both? What is the evolution of parliamentary privileges? Then what about the position in India? What are the different articles in the Indian Constitution which speak about parliamentary privileges? What is the relationship between the privileges of the Indian Parliament and the fundamental rights guaranteed to the Indian citizens? And then what is good and what is bad of having parliamentary privileges? And what are the various decisions of the Indian Supreme Court with respect to parliamentary privileges in India from time to time? So these are the various dimensions of this particular topic. And to begin with, parliamentary privileges in India, they began in the country called Britain or United Kingdom, which is also called United Kingdom. Parliamentary privileges in India, they took both in the country known by the name United Kingdom. So in the long struggle between the British Parliament and the king, the crown, king is also called the crown. In Britain, the king or the queen is known by the name crown. So that too, even in the British Parliament is bicameral. The upper house is called House of Lords. The lower house is called House of Commons. So there was a long struggle between the House of Commons with the British Crown to get freedom. Remember, the king or the queen in Britain at this point of time is an autocratic and despotic ruler, and he is authoritarian, and he is exercising the powers arbitrarily. So there were a number of instances wherein the members of the House of Commons were arrested for trivial reasons. Thomas Thorpe, the Speaker of the House of Commons in the 15th century, was arrested for the non-payment of a very small fine. In addition to this, a parliamentarian by name Strode, a member of House of Commons who is known by the name Strode, was also arrested for giving a speech which the king did not like. Like this, there were a number of examples wherein the members of the House of Commons were exploited, were intimidated by the king or the queen. In addition to this, even the House of Lords, which is the upper house in the British Parliament, enjoyed certain feudal privileges. So the members of the House of Commons, they fought a long struggle against the British Crown, against the feudal privileges of the House of Lords, and also against the authority of the courts in Britain. And because of this long struggle, the members of the House of Commons, they got certain privileges, certain special rights to allow them to discharge their duties without any fear or favor, without any intimidation. So that's how the parliamentary privileges developed in course of time. So parliamentary privileges are nothing but the special rights of the parliament, especially the House of Commons. Special rights of the House of Commons, its members and the committees against the authority of the king, against the feudal privileges of the House of Lords, against the authority of the courts in Britain. So this is how the parliamentary privileges they evolved in India. They evolved in Britain. And then when it comes to India, though by the time India got independence on 15th August 1947, there was no despotic monarch in India. So ideally, there was no necessity for conferring privileges on the Indian Parliament and state legislatures so that they can function independently and autonomously. Despite that, there was no monarchy in India. In India, there was no monarchy, there was no rule of the king. There was neither monarchy nor the king is arbitrary and authoritarian. Despite this, the founding fathers of the Indian Constitution, the framers of the Indian Constitution, they wanted to confer privileges on the Parliament, its members and committees, privileges on the state legislatures, its members and committees, so that the Parliament and the state legislatures can function autonomously and independently without any interference. So this is the idea behind conferring privileges on the Indian Parliament and the state legislatures. But unfortunately, the mistake which was done by the founding fathers of the Indian Constitution is the privileges which the Indian Parliament and the state legislatures enjoy, they were not clearly spelled out. They were not clearly spelled out in the Constitution. They were not mentioned in the Constitution. A very few, 2-3 privileges were mentioned in the Constitution. With respect to the other privileges, the provisions were included in the Constitution of India saying that the privileges of the members of the Parliament and the state legislatures, the privileges of the Parliament and state legislatures, the privileges of the committees of the Parliament and state legislatures will be as such defined by the Indian Parliament by enacting a law. Till the parliamentary privileges are codified, enacted by the Indian Parliament, the Parliament and the state legislatures will enjoy the privileges which were being enjoyed by the House of Commons, which were being enjoyed by the House of Commons. In other words, Indian Parliament was given the status of British Parliament. So in some sense, this was a mistake on the part of the framers of the Indian Constitution to put the Indian Parliament on par with British Parliament, because in Britain we had the concept of sovereignty of the British Parliament. Sovereignty of the British Parliament. In other words, in Britain, because of the unwritten nature of the Indian Constitution, because of the unwritten nature of the British Constitution, in Britain, it is the legislature which is powerful, not the executive, not the judiciary. In addition to this, in Britain, there were no written fundamental rights which act as a limitation on the power of the British Parliament. In addition to this, till 2009, Britain didn't have an independent judiciary. The House of Lords, which is the upper house in the British Parliament, also acted as the highest court till recently, till 2009. So in Britain, for the following reasons, Parliament is very powerful. What are the reasons? Unwritten nature of the Indian Constitution, absence of written fundamental rights, then unitary nature of the Indian Constitution, and then the judiciary with the limited power of judicial review. So that's why there was one popular statement given by D. Lolmy, one of the British political thinkers. He says, British Parliament can do anything except converting a man into woman and a woman into man. So this is the power of British Parliament. So the powers of the British Parliament, very high. So in Britain, it is the Parliament which is more powerful compared to the executive and the judicial branches. But this is not the case in India. In India, if you compare the powers of the Indian Parliament with the British Parliament, because of Indian Constitution being a written constitution, in India it is the Constitution which is supreme. And to uphold the supremacy of the Constitution, the judiciary is given the power of judicial review. So in India it is the judiciary which is powerful, not the executive and not the legislature. In addition to this, the federal nature of the Indian Constitution, it divides the executive, legislative and financial powers between the central and the state governments. All the lawmaking powers, they are not conferred on the Indian Parliament. So lawmaking powers are divided between the Indian Parliament and the state legislatures. This is one reason. In addition to this, presence of written fundamental rights. Because of all these reasons, what are the reasons? The written nature of the Constitution. This is responsible for supremacy of the Constitution. Judiciary with the power of judicial review, and the judicial branch becoming very powerful. Then presence of written fundamental rights, they act as a limitation on the powers of the British Parliament. In addition to this, the legislative powers are divided between the central parliament and the state legislatures. Because of all these reasons, we cannot equate the powers and authority of the Indian Parliament with that of the British Parliament. So, conferring privileges on Indian Parliament on the lines of the House of Commons is unwarranted in India, is the criticism which is levelled against the provisions in the Indian Constitution relating to parliamentary privileges. In addition to this, if you see in the Constituent Assembly debates, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the President of the Constituent Assembly, had expressed a fear, a doubt that the parliamentary privileges may remain uncodified. He said that this is the danger, and he is very true, because even after 60 years, even after 70 years of India's independence, parliamentary privileges in India remain uncodified even today. But in countries like United States of America, the lower house, which is the House of Representatives, has functioned well for the last more than 2 centuries without any penal powers, without any privileges which are conferred on the Indian Parliament. Such privileges are absent in United States of America. Despite this, the House of Representatives, which is the lower house, has functioned properly without any penal powers. In addition to this, even in Britain, actions which are inflammatory, which are defamatory, are no more considered as the questions of privilege in UK. So the country where the privileges took both, in the same country there is a dilution of these parliamentary privileges. But we the Indians who have borrowed the privileges from Britain, we stick to them and adhere to them, creating problems to the freedom of speech and expression, which is guaranteed to the citizens of this country under Article 19, Class 1, Subclass A. Then, what are the articles in the Indian Constitution which deal with the privileges? So, Article 105 deals with the privileges of the Parliament, privileges of the members of the Parliament, privileges of the committees of the Parliament. Similarly, Article 194, it deals with the privileges of the state legislatures, privileges of the members of the state legislatures, privileges of the committees of the state legislatures. One important reason why the parliamentary privileges in India were not yet codified is, if the parliamentary privileges are codified, if they are legislated upon by the Indian Parliament, then these privileges will be subjected to fundamental rights. In other words, if parliamentary privileges are legislated and codified in this country, they will be subjected to judicial review. As of now, under Article 105, under Article 194, the members of the Parliament and the state legislatures, they have the freedom of speech and debate, in the Parliament or the state legislatures. But if there is a conflict between freedom of speech under Article 19 Clause 1 Subclass A versus Article 105 and Article 194, the freedom of speech of the members of the parliament and state legislatures will have precedence over the freedom of speech and expression guaranteed to the citizens of this country. Under Article 19 Clause 1 Subclass A, every citizen is guaranteed the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression, and there are limitations on this free speech, and these limitations were mentioned under Article 19 Clause 2. But when it comes to Article 105 and 194, the free speech which is conferred on the members of the parliament and the state legislatures is not subjected to Article 19 Clause 2. So in case there is a conflict between the free speech of the citizens and the privileges of the Indian Parliament and the state legislatures, the privileges will be given more importance. In other words, Article 19 Clause 1 Subclass A is subject to Article 105 and 194. And the limitations, the reasonable restrictions which were spelled out under Article 19 Clause 2, they do not apply to the free speech of the members of the parliament and the state legislatures. So this is the problem. So Indian Parliament and the state legislatures, they don't want to codify the privileges. The reason is, if the privileges are not codified, they will not be subjected to judicial review. They will not be subjected to fundamental rights. So that's the reason why the members of the parliament doesn't want to codify the privileges. And in 2002, we had a national commission to review the working of the Indian Constitution, headed by M.N. Venkatachalaya Commission. So this commission made a clear recommendation to define and codify the privileges. In countries like Australia, the privileges of the parliament were codified. So there shall not be any problem in India for codifying the privileges. So that's the issue. And then, what are the different cases? What are the different judgments related to the parliamentary privileges in India? We will discuss in the next session. Here, see, parliamentary privileges in India. As I told you, Thomas Thorpe, he was the Speaker of the House of Commons in 1453. Thomas Thorpe was the Speaker of the House of Commons in 1453. He was arrested. For the non-payment of some small fine. So Thomas Thorpe, Speaker of the House of Commons, was arrested in 1453 in Britain, in United Kingdom, for the non-payment of some small fine. In addition to this, another parliamentarian, Strode, was arrested in 1512 for introducing the bills which the crown didn't like, which the crown here means the king or the queen of Britain didn't like these bills. That's the reason why the Strode was arrested. In addition to this, we have other examples. Eliot, Hollis and Valentine. Eliot, Hollis and Valentine were arrested in 1629 because the speeches which they have made in the parliament were considered to be seditious speeches. Seditious speeches. So this is the background under which the parliamentary privileges took both in United Kingdom. So parliamentary privileges were the result of the long struggle between the House of Commons on one hand, the king or the crown, the House of Lords and its feudal privileges, and the authority of the courts. So the members of the House of Commons wanted to function and discharge their duties and responsibilities without any fear or favor, and for this they fought with the crown, House of Lords and the courts and got privileges, special rights in course of time. So that's how the parliamentary privileges and the idea of the parliamentary privileges began in United Kingdom. Then, as I told you, parliamentary privileges originated during the long struggle. Then, privileges of legislatures, that is privileges of the House of Commons, they are the milestones of democracy in its struggle to free representative and responsible institutions from the burdens of feudal privileges and the arbitrariness of an authoritarian executive. Arbitrariness of an authoritarian executive. Here authoritarian executive means the British Crown. Then, as I told you, parliamentary privileges are meant to enable people's representatives to perform their duty without fear or favor, without pressures or intimidations. This is the purpose of parliamentary privileges when they took both in United Kingdom. So parliamentary privileges are meant to enable people's representatives to perform their duty without fear or favor, pressures or intimidation. So the privileges were fought for and won by the House of Commons from the royalty, aristocracy and the courts. So this is what I have explained in the beginning. Then, in the words of Thomas Erskine, the privileges of the House of Commons are the sum of fundamental rights of the House and its individual members as against the prerogatives of the Crown, the authority of the ordinary courts and the special rights of the House of Lords. This I have already told. So, and again if you see major parliamentary privileges in United Kingdom, they include freedom from civil arrest. Freedom from civil arrest. This is available even in India. In addition to this, freedom of speech. This is again available in India. Freedom of speech and debate. Then internal autonomy. Then privilege of disciplinary power over the members. Ordering attendance of witnesses, punishment of non-members for disobedience, right to open or close door debate, etc. were the privileges enjoyed by the members of the Parliament in Britain, especially the House of Commons. In addition, even the individual members. Then, in India, if you take in India, for the first time, the statutory recognition to parliamentary privileges were given through the Government of India Act 1919. So if you trace the origin of evolution of parliamentary privileges in India, it dates back to Government of India Act 1919. So here in the Government of India Act 1919, there shall be freedom of speech in the Governor's Legislative Council. No person shall be liable to any proceeding in any court. That's what it was laid down. Then in addition to this, the amendments which were done in 1925 to the Civil Procedure Code also reinforced the parliamentary privileges in India. So privileges of legislators were reinforced by the amendments to the Civil Procedure Code in 1925 by exempting them from arrest or detention under civil process. So what is the impact of the amendment? The members of the Parliament were exempted from arrest or detention under civil process in the course of meeting of the legislature or any of its committees. So when the legislature is in session, when any committee of the legislature is in meeting, the members of the committees and the members of the legislature cannot be arrested in the civil process. They cannot be detained under the civil process. In addition to this, again the Criminal Procedure Code was also amended. The amendment which was done to the Criminal Procedure Code also exempted members from serving as jurors, that is from serving as witnesses. This was because of the amendment which was done to the Criminal Procedure Code. In addition to this, parliamentary privileges in India are partly mentioned in the Constitution and partly left to the convention of the British Parliament. This I told. 2-3 parliamentary privileges were mentioned in the Indian Constitution. The rest will be those parliamentary privileges which are available to the House of Commons till the Parliament makes a law in this regard. That's what the Constitution says. Then, so far, no such law was enacted by the Indian Parliament, so the parliamentary privileges in India, they remain uncodified. They were not legislated upon. In addition to this is the point. So far, neither the Parliament nor the courts, despite several suits, have finally codified the immunities nor judicially determined them under its original jurisdiction. This is the situation. So then what is the consequence of this? Our legislators have the power to be the sole judges to decide what their privileges are, what constitutes their breach, and what punishment is to be awarded in case of breach. And this is considered to be an extreme power because the Indian Constitution is based on the philosophy of constitutionalism. As the Indian Constitution is written, in India the Constitution is supreme. All the three branches of the government, they derive their authority from the Constitution and they enjoy the limited powers which are conferred on them within the bounds of the Constitution. So, because of the philosophy of constitutionalism and because of the philosophy of limited government, if the privileges conferred on the Indian Parliament remain uncodified, that will go against the philosophy and the idea of constitutionalism is the argument. Then, as I told you, Article 105 and 194, they deal with parliamentary privileges. And then, I have also told the Parliament in India is not as a sovereign as in Britain, and I have given the reasons. I have referred to the statement of D. Lolme. Then, I have already told you why parliamentary privileges are not codified. If they are codified, then they will be subjected to judicial review in case if they violate the fundamental rights of the Indian citizens. If parliamentary privileges are not codified, then the power of judicial review cannot be extended to these parliamentary privileges. But I have told Australia is one example where the parliamentary privileges were codified by enacting a law in 1987. In United States of America, we have an example. The lower house, the House of Representatives, has been working very smoothly without any penal powers for well over 2 centuries. Even in Britain, the British House has itself broken from the past. Acts and utterances defamatory of Parliament or its members are no longer treated as privilege questions. So, when the entire world is changing, India also needs to change. In addition to this, we had a problem with these privileges. In one of the cases known as P.V. Narasimha Rao versus the state, the Supreme Court unfortunately said the members of the Parliament who took money, who took bribe to vote in favor of the P.V. Narasimha Rao government were protected, their actions are protected under the parliamentary privileges. So, the corrupt behavior of the members of the Parliament is protected under parliamentary privileges conferred by the Indian Constitution. Then, in 2 cases, Hardwari, Lal and A.R. Antulo cases, the court did accept their contention and held that MLAs are not public servants. So, because of the parliamentary privileges, the courts even went to the extent of saying that the MLAs are not public servants. But this was corrected in course of time in the P.V. Narasimha Rao case, wherein the legislators were considered to be within the definition of public servants. Then, in the P.V. Narasimha Rao case, I told you they can legally take bribes and vote as per the desire of the bribe giver, and they will not be liable for corruption because under legislative privileges, they cannot be questioned in respect of any vote given by them. So, that is the problem with parliamentary privileges. As I told, in the Constituent Assembly, Dr. Rajendra Prasad said, Parliament will define the powers and privileges, but until Parliament has undertaken the legislation and passed it, the privileges and powers of House of Commons will apply. The privileges and the powers of the House of Commons will apply. And in the Constituent Assembly, he said, the Parliament may never legislate on that point and it is therefore for the members to be vigilant. The words of Rajendra Prasad turned out to be prophetic. Nearly 70 years later, neither parliament nor legislatures have passed laws codifying privileges. Then, what is the reason that we are asking for codification? If the legislative privileges are codified, then the exact boundaries of the parliamentary privileges will be better known, and people, especially from the press and media, can get to know where to stop and where not to stop. So when they report the proceedings of the parliament and the state legislatures, what is the Lakshmana Rekha for them, where they cannot go beyond a certain point, that will be better communicated, so that there will be no cases filed against them for violating the parliamentary privileges. And then in 2008, Committee on Privileges of Lok Sabha examined this issue of codification of parliamentary privileges, and it said the committee felt that allegations of misuse of its powers were due to ignorance of the procedures, and noted that it had recommended punishment in only 5 cases since the first Lok Sabha was constituted. Since the first Lok Sabha was constituted, it has recommended punishments only in 5 cases. So what does it mean? It concluded that there was no need for codification. So 2008 Committee on Privileges of Lok Sabha recommended that there is no need for codification. But in 2002, I told, M.N. Venkatachalaya Commission, that is the National Commission to review the working of Indian Constitution, it has recommended for defining and codifying the privileges in India. So this I have to. Then let us discuss the cases. The first case after India got independent, the first case after India's independence relating to parliamentary privileges is, this is the case, Blidge case. Keshavaram Reddy versus Nafisul Hasan. This was in 1952. This was the first case in independent India relating to legislative privileges. The Blidge case, Blidge. Keshavaram Reddy versus Nafisul Hasan and the state of Uttar Pradesh was the first case. So here the editor of Blidge was arrested for the breach of privilege of Assembly of UP on the order of the Speaker. The Supreme Court ordered his release as the petitioner had been lodged in a hotel in UP and not produced before a magistrate as per Article 22 Clause 2. According to Article 22 Clause 2, any person who is arrested or detained must be produced before the judicial magistrate. This was not done, and because of this reason, the person was asked to be released by the Supreme Court in this case. Blidge case, Keshavaram Reddy versus Nafisul Hasan. Then the next important case after India's independence is in 1958. 1958. The case is M.S.M. Sharma versus Shri Krishna Sinha and others. M.S.M. Sharma versus Shri Krishna Sinha and others, 1958. It involved a Patna daily called the Searchlight. The case involved a Patna daily called the Searchlight. So the case is also called Searchlight case, 1958. And what is the issue here? It published, so this daily, Patna daily published a speech of an MLA on the floor of the assembly, vehemently, very seriously criticizing Chief Minister S.K. Sinha, criticizing the then Chief Minister S.K. Sinha, which the Speaker had ordered to be removed, but he did not remove that part, and he has published it, and it became a controversy. So a show cause notice to the editor was sent by the assembly, and the editor moved the Supreme Court under Article 32. Article 32 says the fundamental rights guaranteed by the Indian Constitution, if they are taken away, the citizen can go to the Supreme Court under Article 32. Remember, in India, though freedom of press was not explicitly mentioned, it is implicit in the freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a). So the editor moved the Supreme Court, arguing that he had the power to publish what happened in the assembly under Article 19(1)(a), under Article 19 Clause 1 Subclass A, which guarantees free speech. So he is arguing that he enjoys this right under Article 19(1)(a). So he went before the Supreme Court to get his right enforced. And what the Supreme Court said? The Supreme Court in this case, by a majority of 4:1, this case was decided by a constitution bench consisting of 5 judges, 4:1. By this majority it was said, until the parliament or the state legislature made a law under Article 105 clause 3 or 194 clause 3 respectively, the privileges were not subject to fundamental rights. So the Supreme Court said, as long as the parliament does not codify the privileges under Article 105 clause 3, similarly as long as the state legislatures do not codify the privileges under Article 194 clause 3, fundamental rights cannot be subjected to privileges. Fundamental rights cannot be subjected to privileges, which means the power of judicial review cannot be exercised. That's what the Supreme Court said in this case. And this was repeated in another case in 1962 called Prem Chand Garg versus Excise Commissioner. Prem Chand Garg versus Excise Commissioner 1962. It was repeated that the court held that Article 19(1)(a) was subject to Article 194 clause 3. The free speech guaranteed by Article 19 clause 1 subclause A was subordinate to the privileges conferred by Article 105 clause 3 and also 194 clause 3. That's what the Supreme Court said. Then, in other words, the Supreme Court gave primacy to the privileges over free speech. The Supreme Court gave primacy to the privileges over free speech. Here there is one more argument. In the first 1.5 decade of the Indian Parliament, the members of the Parliament, most of them were freedom fighters and they had a very high moral and good conduct. And it is because of this, the Supreme Court, with due respect to the members of the Parliament, most of whom were the freedom fighters, it gave primacy to the privileges of the members of the Parliament over the free speech. Then subsequently by 1967, the Supreme Court was convinced that the Parliament should not have absolute powers. The Parliament should not have absolute powers. And then the next important case, see here, in the same case, MSM Sharma case, the Supreme Court held that the power of judicial review applicable to ordinary law could not be invoked to challenge an order made under Article 194, which is a constitutional provision. Then the next important case is Keshav Singh case. Keshav Singh versus Speaker Legislative Assembly. This was delivered in 1965. Keshav Singh versus Speaker Legislative Assembly. And what is the case? This was the conflict between Uttar Pradesh Legislative Assembly and the Allahabad High Court. And then what is the issue here? A person with the name Keshav Singh published a pamphlet against an MLA. The House adjudged him guilty of committing contempt of the House, and he was sentenced to be reprimanded by the Speaker in the House. And when this man was given reprimand on 14th March 1964, he misbehaved in the House to cause offence, whereupon the House directed the imprisonment of Keshav Singh. And subsequently what happened? The advocate of the Keshav Singh, known by the name Solomon, he filed a petition at the Lucknow bench of the Allahabad High Court under Article 226 and obtained interim bail for Keshav Singh until the final disposal of the case. So he was given bail, in interim bail. So the Speaker got very angry and then he ordered the 2 judges of the bench to be arrested. That led to a big crisis, and then these 2 judges have filed a petition before the Allahabad High Court under Article 226. Then the full bench of the Allahabad High Court with all the 28 judges, a full bench of 28 judges of the Allahabad High Court ordered stay of the implementation of the order of the Assembly. Ordered stay, stopping the implementation of the order of the Assembly. Then in addition to this, and as it led to an unprecedented constitutional crisis, this was referred to the Indian Supreme Court under Article 143. Under Article 143, the President can refer a matter to the Supreme Court for its advice. Then the Supreme Court has given this advice. What is the advice given? The court by a majority of 6-1 opined that the two judges had not committed contempt of the assembly and a citizen had the right to move the court, and an advocate was duly bound to assist the judicial process independent of Article 105 Clause 3 and Article 194 Clause 3. So saying this, it also said the Allahabad High Court, after the advisory opinion, the Allahabad High Court considered the Kesosin case and recognized the Assembly's power and the jurisdiction to commit for its contempt and sentence an offender, and ruled the courts could not go into the correctness, propriety or legality of the commitment. In addition to this, in one of the another cases called Taj Kiran Jain versus N. Sanjeev Reddy, Neelam Sanjeev Reddy, the Supreme Court in one more case, in one of the cases known by the name Taj Kiran Jain versus Neelam Sanjeev Reddy, that a speech made in the parliament was immune from legal proceedings in the court. And in Keshav Singh case, one of the important part of the judgment is the Supreme Court clarified that Article 21, right to life and personal liberty, would be applicable even when legislatures exercise their powers in respect of their privileges. So what does this mean? In case if there is a conflict between right to life and personal liberty and the privileges, then the privileges will be subjected to right to life. Right to life and personal liberty will have precedence, will have more importance compared to privileges. Then the another important case, P.V. Narasimha Rao versus State. P.V. Narasimha Rao versus State, CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation or Special Police Establishment. This case was decided in 1998. And even in this case, the Supreme Court said Article 19 Class 1 subclass A was subject to Article 194(3). The Supreme Court by a majority of 3:2 in the P.V. Narasimha Rao case said that the MPs who allegedly accepted bribes and voted in favor of the government were entitled to immunity under parliamentary privileges. So despite the corrupt behavior on the part of the members of the parliament who voted in favor of a government by accepting bribes, said the Supreme Court that it is protected under the parliamentary privileges. And this is absurd because this is unreasonable, because parliamentary privileges must yield to the basic principles of good government, freedom, equality, justice, the bulwarks of rule of law. In addition to this, in the same case, P.V. Narasimha Rao case, the Supreme Court also said the 5-judge bench of the court agreed on the point that freedom of speech available to members of parliament under Article 105 Clause 1 is wider in amplitude than the right to freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a), which is available to the citizens, because the freedom of speech in Parliament under Article 105 Clause 1 is not subject to the limitations contained in Article 19 Clause 2. Why the freedom of speech of the members of the Parliament and state legislature is wider is because the reasonable restrictions which are mentioned under Article 19 Clause 2, they don't apply to the free speech of the members of the Parliament and state legislature. So the free speech of the members of the Parliament and state legislatures is wider when compared with the free speech of the ordinary citizens under Article 19(1)(a). Then the students must also remember Operation Duryodhana, which was conducted in 2005. It was a sting operation wherein a selected members of the parliament were asked to take money and to ask questions in the question hour. And 11 members of the parliament took money to ask questions in the question hour, and all of them were expelled. This was challenged before the Supreme Court, which is also called cash for query scam. Cash for query scam. An important case, Raja Rampal versus Honorable Speaker, the Lok Sabha. This was decided in 2007. Raja Rampal was one of the members of the parliament who was expelled because he took cash for asking questions in the question hour. So this judgment was delivered in 2007, and in this judgment, see the important features of this judgment. The Supreme Court claimed for itself the role to play the final interpreter or arbiter by sitting in judgment on the legality of decisions taken by the legislature. In addition to this, The Supreme Court was unambiguous that Article 105 Clause 3 confers on the Parliament the right to punish, including expulsion of an errant member. So the one question was raised before the Supreme Court. So the power of the Parliament under Article 105, does it include the power to expel a member, is the question before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court agreed and recognized that the Indian Parliament has the power to expel a member of a deviant behavior under Article 105. By using the powers under Article 105, the Parliament can expel the members. That's what the Supreme Court said. So in other words, the action done by the action of the Speaker, the then Speaker Somnath Chatterjee, was held to be constitutionally valid. Chief Justice Y.K. Sabharwal, along with the CJ designate K.G. Balakrishnan and Justices C.K. Thakkar and D.K. Jain, settled the matter decisively in Parliament's favor. Then, when these 11 members were expelled on the cash for query scam, resolutions were passed by the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha on December 23. But when these resolutions was passed, they did not invoke any specific constitutional provision or statute to explain the exercise of this power. So if you take the House of Commons, in the last 1 century, the House of Commons made use of this power to expel its members only very rarely, that is only 3 times. In Indian Parliament, this happened in only once. Then there was an argument before the Supreme Court under Article 101 and 102, members can be disqualified. And the expelling of members under Article 105 is incidental and supplementary to what is already there in 101 and 102. Articles 101 and 102 also deal with the disqualification on other grounds. In addition to these 2 articles, even Article 105 also can expel the members, and this is in addition to what is there in 101 and 102. This is the argument before the Supreme Court. And in addition to this, the Punjab and Haryana High Court earlier in 1977, this case was decided in 2007, but well before that, in 1977, the Punjab and Haryana High Court declared in the Hardwari Lal case that the houses in India have no power of expulsion. So in 1977, that is 30 years before the judgment in the Rampal case, Punjab and Haryana High Court said the houses of the Parliament and the state legislatures do not have the power to expel the members. But rejecting this judgment in 2007 case, the Supreme Court said under Article 105, under Article 194, the Parliament and the state legislatures have the power to expel the members. But here there is a difference. In India, the resolution which is meant for expelling needs to be passed by simple majority. But in countries like United States of America, if a member of the House needs to be expelled, that expulsion has to be passed by 2/3 of the total strength. In addition to this, in countries like United States of America, a member of the Parliament can be expelled only if he is convicted by the courts. But in India, it is not necessary for the conviction in the court of law for expelling a member. Even without the conviction, the House can expel a member from the membership. So that's the decision given. In addition to this, I have told, in Indian Parliament, a simple majority is considered enough to adopt a resolution expelling a member. In the US House of Representatives, it should be backed by 2/3 strength of the House. In India, it is not necessary that the member to be expelled must have been convicted for an offence by a court of law. In the US, on the other hand, prior conviction for specific offences is imperative. Then, a 5-judge constitution bench by Chief Justice Y.K. Sabharwal held by 4-1 majority that Parliament has the power to expel erring members. So Parliament actions, but it said that the Parliament actions remained subject to judicial review. And the court described the expulsion as a self-protection exercise. The expulsion in 2007, whatever expulsion was done, was explained as a self-protection exercise by Parliament. The court held, here this is important, the fundamental rights under Article 20 and 21 could prevail over privileges under Article 195 and 194. So here one important opinion tendered by the Supreme Court is, if there is conflict between fundamental rights guaranteed by Article 20 and 21 on one hand, privileges and on the other hand, these fundamental rights will have an upper hand. That's what the Supreme Court said. But free speech will not have an upper hand. The fundamental rights guaranteed by Article 20 and 21 will have an upper hand over the privileges. But the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression will not have an upper hand over the privileges. Instead, the free speech is subordinated to privileges. That's what the Supreme Court said. In addition to this, constitutional system of governance abhors absolutism, and it being the cardinal principle of our constitution that no one, howsoever lofty, can claim to be the sole judge of the power given under the constitution. So this judgment given by the Supreme Court in 2007 was explained by Fali Nariman, who was a constitutional expert. He said that in this judgment, the Supreme Court showed great judicial statesmanship. Great judicial statesmanship. So that's it about parliamentary privileges in India and the various decisions made by the Supreme Court relating to parliamentary privileges. Thank you.